Hey guys, it's November the 4th, 2025, and I hope everybody's been having a wonderful day so far today. I hope everybody had a great weekend this past weekend, and hope everybody had a nice day yesterday as well. Sorry I wasn't here yesterday, but if you missed my community post that I put up yesterday afternoon, I think it was, my wife took the day off yesterday. It was her birthday. And I just wanted to spend the day uninterrupted with her because it does take me, a couple of hours every day to do these videos. And I didn't want to have to break off from, spending the time with her to film and all that kind of stuff. I figured it wouldn't be that big of a deal if I missed one video just so I could spend the day with her. So once again, I'm sorry I wasn't here yesterday, but I'm back today. And she had a really, really nice birthday yesterday. We had a really nice time. Our in-laws came over here last night. We just had some pizza and just hung out, let her open up presents, just spent time together as a family. And while we were hanging out last night, just, spending time together, like I said, as a family, it just made me really think about, how things have changed so much since I've gotten sober and just the difference and, time spent together as a family, and especially like during the holidays and things like that. It's just such a different experience. And like I said, that's what I wanted to talk about today. I was just thinking about those nostalgic thoughts from the holidays, and with us coming into the holiday, which is just absolutely insane. This year has flown by this quick. We are already 1 month away basically from Christmas, and we're not far away from Thanksgiving. I mean, it is just insane. I mean, we're a little bit more than a month away from Christmas time, but we are close. It's like the summertime, just snap of a finger, it was over, and here we are. I mean, we're this close to Christmas already, and like I said, I just want to talk about that today because I think it's really important to discuss. The thing about it is, like I said yesterday, I'm sitting there on the couch and I'm just hanging out. We're all just talking and things like that, and I was thinking to myself, how different this was when I used to drink. Number one, I would not have been awake at the time that we were sitting there, and I was thinking about it because it was like 9 o'clock last night. If I had been drinking, I would have been passed out long before that. I would have passed out 6:30, 7 o'clock, maybe even earlier than that, because there's no way I could have stayed awake. And now, when we do things together as a family, I'm not passed out super early. I'm not, when we go do something like we go on vacation together as a family, I used to pass out in the middle of the day, and then I'd have to, wake back up later on in the evening, and I'd start all back over again. But there was like this huge chunk out of my day that was missing all the time, and especially on important days, when I'm trying to spend time with my family, I had no self-control. When I would wake up that morning, I would tell myself, I'm not going to get wasted drunk today. I'm going to keep it slow. I'm not going to go fast with it. I'm only going to drink beer in the morning, and then I'm really going to pace myself so that when it's time and we have to do something together as a family, I'm going to be sober enough to be able to maintain, and I'm just going to have a nice buzz. And that's just not the way that it ever worked out. I'd wake up that morning hungover as usual, like every other day, and then I would just start drinking. And like I said, I would tell myself I'm only going to have beer. But I'd wake up that morning and be like, I've got to have at least one cocktail. Well, that one cocktail turned into 5 cocktails. I never even touched any beer. And then before you know it, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'm seeing cross-eyed. And my wife would always be upset with me because, we're supposed to be leaving to go over to, like I said, if it's Thanksgiving, we're supposed to go over to my in-laws' house. And then we have to go to my parents' house after that. And Christmas, same thing. We have to split time in between 2 houses, and I was always too drunk to even go over there. And often I would show up and just go to sleep. I'd go over to my in-laws' house, and, as always, I'm really tired, and I'd just go sit on the couch and pass out. Or if we went to my parents' house, I sat on the couch and just fell asleep over there. Or I'd ask my mom, can I go upstairs and lay down? And I would just go to sleep. I was talking about this just a couple weeks ago, but during Christmas, the Christmas before I got sober, we went over to my parents' house, and as soon as we got over there, 3 o'clock in the afternoon or something, I fell asleep sitting on the couch. I was asleep the whole entire time that they opened up presents and everything. When I finally woke up at like 8 o'clock that night, whatever time it was, I know it was dark outside. When I woke up, my dad said, you know, you still have all your presents to open. And here I am opening up my presents with everybody sitting around watching by myself. You know, instead of having, you know, one person over here opening a present, one person over here opening up a present, and it's not like everybody's eyes are just on you while you're doing so. That day, it was all on me. Everybody just sat there and watched as I opened up my presents because I was so drunk by the time that we got over there that I passed out. And then I had to open up all my presents alone, which was rather embarrassing, I have to say. And it was all because I could not control myself and just kept drinking and drinking and drinking that day until I was blackout drunk before we even got over to my folks' house. Like I said, when we go over to do anything during the holiday season, especially at families, and we're sober, it's such a better experience. It's so much different. You know, number one, it's not what you're used to. Because first and foremost, you remember everything. You're not as likely to say something that you're going to regret the next day. You know, every single time that I would go over to my in-laws' house or my parents' house, I always said or did something that I never knew about until the next day, until somebody told me what was going on, because I didn't remember it. I'm sorry, I just brushed my teeth just a minute ago because I just ate something, and I think I got toothpaste in my mustache. I'm sorry. But it's like sweat or toothpaste or water or something up there. That's one thing that I don't like about having a longer mustache. Things tend to get stuck in it. But anyway, like I said, I just had no self-control. You know, it was always this idea that I was going to, you know, only have 2 or 3 beers throughout the day before we go over to my parents' house or my in-laws' house, and then I'll drink when I get over there. But I always had to party before we got there, and then I just took it too far. Because the one thing about us is that we just don't have any self-control. It's like I always talk about, you know, there is no, I'm going to have just 2 or 3 beers on a Friday night. Those 2 or 3 beers turn into a case of beer plus shots of liquor, and then we wake up the next morning and start all over again, and the cycle just completely repeats itself, and we're right back in the grasp of AUD. And you could have been, you know, years sober, and just one day it starts all over again, because we get that feeling. We start feeling good. And then we get this idea, well, if 5 made me feel good, then 100 will make me feel even better. So we just drink and drink and drink and drink. And then, you know, we get to that point where we don't even know what's going on. You know, we're a sloppy mess. It's embarrassing. Like I was talking about the other day, if you've ever seen video of yourself when you're intoxicated, it's not a good feeling when you're watching yourself look like that. You know, you're stumbling around, your eyes are crossed, you're slurring your words. You're talking gibberish. You know, what you're talking about doesn't even make any sense. It's just not a good look. Like I said the other day, it's just not a good look. But anyway, the point of today's video is that, and I always veer off onto some other tangent, and I'm still kind of talking about the same thing. But my point of today's video is that, you know, don't let those nostalgic thoughts from your previous holidays interfere with this year. You know, because I'm sure that, you know, whoever you are out there watching this right now, especially if you're dealing with alcoholism or AUD, at some point in your life, you had a great Christmas or a great Thanksgiving. You know, you went over to your folks' house, or, you know, you went over and did some Thanksgiving dinner, and, you know, you drank, you know, this is back in your earlier days of your drinking too. You know, you actually drank slowly. You drank, you know, alcohol that didn't have a very high ABV to it. You know, you're drinking Bud Light, or, you know, maybe you're drinking some very a wine that doesn't have a lot of alcohol in it, and you drank throughout the day, and you got that nice slow buzz, and you felt great, and you had a great time, and you guys laughed and played card games and played Jenga, and everybody's laughing and giggling, and, you know, nobody got wasted drunk, and there was no drama, and, you know, nobody was arguing and fighting with each other, or any of that kind of stuff. It just turned out to be a great day. And I think often, because I know I do this for myself, I'll think back to those nostalgic times, those nostalgic holidays when I did have a really good time, when things were great. And I was drinking. And like I said, it was fun. Everybody was happy. Nobody was upset. My wife wasn't angry at me because I drank so much. This is back before I was drinking a half a gallon of vodka every single day. It was just those really fun, nostalgic holiday get-togethers. And often, I know for myself, like I said, I'll think back to those times and think, it wouldn't be too bad, and this is what's happening in my mind, that, it wouldn't be too bad if I just had a 6-pack, on Thanksgiving. Nobody's going to know. They are for sure going to know, because like I said, there is no 6-pack. If I was to drink 2 beers, it would be off to the races. I would have to drink liquor because the beer wouldn't get me where I wanted to be, and it would all start all over again. I would be right back in the throes of full-blown alcoholism or AUD. It would be, drinking from the time I woke up in the morning until the time I passed out, all day long. I wouldn't even be drinking water. I wouldn't drink coffee. I wouldn't drink anything except for alcohol. Back when I was drinking, beer was an energy drink for me. Instead of drinking a Monster or something like that, which is still not good for you, but a heck of a lot better for you than alcohol. But instead of, stopping by the gas station and grabbing a Monster energy drink on the way to work, I stopped by the gas station and grabbed, 2 Deuces and slammed both of them before I even walked into work. I'm sitting out in the parking lot, trying my best to hide so nobody can see me. I'm leaned back in the back of my seat, trying to keep the beer can so nobody can see what I'm doing. Or I've got a cup and I'm just pouring it in the cup and just slamming it before I walk in there. It's just the way it always ends up being. So don't let those nostalgic thoughts, interfere with your holiday this year. If you start thinking about that, you start getting these, you start remembering the past, and you start thinking about, Thanksgiving 5 years ago when you went over to your family's house and you guys had a great time and you drank all day long and everything was great. That was 5 years ago. That was you 5 years ago. That was you 5 years ago when you weren't drinking what you were drinking here recently before you quit, or whenever that was, like for myself, back when, let's say in my 20s, I drank beer and I didn't get completely wasted drunk. I would really late in the night, but I just didn't drink liquor like that. And for the most part, I was usually buzzed up, but I just wasn't like stumbling over myself wasted drunk. I'm not that guy anymore, and I never will be that person ever again. I have far surpassed that level of drinking, and I'll never be able to go back to that ever again, and you'll never be able to go back to that again either. It's just once we get to this certain place, it's just we're there. And there's no coming back from it. We always have to take things way too far. And if you were a person that was drinking a liter of Jack Daniels every single day, or a case of beer every single day, or 3 bottles of wine every day, or a half a gallon of Wild Turkey, or a half a gallon of vodka, or whatever it is, whatever amount of alcohol that you're drinking, maybe you will on Thanksgiving be able to maintain yourself a little bit. Maybe you'll be able to maintain yourself the next day a little bit. But at some point, you're going to go right back to square one. You're going to be right back where you were before you quit. We have to go there every single time, because at one point we were drinking that much. It's just the way this works. Why? I don't know. But we just always go back. Don't let those nostalgic thoughts ruin your holiday this year. Go spend time with your family and really enjoy yourself. I can promise you that your family are going to be so proud of you when you show up and stay sober the whole entire time. The experience that you're going to have, if this is your first year going into Thanksgiving or Christmas being sober, the experience that you're going to have is going to be something that's going to blow you away. Like I said, number one, you remember every single part of it. You don't wake up the next morning completely blacked out and don't even remember what you even got for Christmas. Because that used to be me every year. I had 2 Christmases every year, guys, and I am not kidding you. I swear this is the truth. I blacked out every single year and would open the presents and all that stuff. And, I was present. I was there, but in my mind, I was not present. I wasn't fully there because I was, blacked out during that period of time. I had a second Christmas the next morning when I woke up. After I finally was able to pull myself up out of the bed and have a couple of drinks to shake the hangover off and, take my ibuprofen on my Tums and, sit around and watch TV until I finally felt well enough to get up. I had Christmas number 2. That's when I really found out what I got for Christmas because I was sober enough at that point to finally realize what I'd got for Christmas, to finally remember what I got for Christmas. That's just absolutely insane. That I would not be able to remember anything from Christmas. Nothing. I didn't remember what happened. I didn't remember anything. I would have to go back the next day and watch all the videos, look at the pictures. And the really sad thing about it is, and I really don't want to admit this right now, but, I wouldn't even remember my kids opening up presents on Christmas. I didn't even remember what they'd even gotten half the time. My wife and I would, talk about what we're going to get the kids for Christmas and all that stuff. And, I usually knew what their big present was going to be, but my wife got a lot of presents too on her own. I was always at work and I just wasn't present, guys. And that's just the honest to God truth. My wife took care of everything. And, there I would be, looking at these presents that my kids had gotten. And I was so disconnected from everything that I didn't even know what they had even gotten for Christmas. Like I said, I would know what they had gotten, like their big present, but the small stuff, my wife would go out and, get their presents for them. And she showed them to me. She would tell me what they had gotten. I just would be so drunk, but when she showed me, I did not remember. So here it is Christmas morning, or the next day, and they're opening this stuff up. And I wouldn't even know what it was. It was just as much of a surprise to me as it was to them what they were opening up. And Christmas morning, I would wake up, and we would open up presents here at my house. And I'd wake up that morning before everybody else did because I needed to, so I'd get up at 5 a.m. And I just woke up early back then anyway, but I would wake up, do my daily routine, get up, go throw up, have diarrhea for an hour, mix a couple of drinks, and finally, get the hangover to shake off just enough. And then, 7 o'clock in the morning or whatever, everybody's getting up to open up the presents. And I was present enough during that period of time. I wasn't wasted drunk that early in the morning, but, like I said, here I am. My kids are opening up presents and I'm watching just as surprised as they are. Because I wasn't present ever. I would get home from work or something and my wife would say, "Hey, I bought the kids this. What do you think about that?" And, "Oh yeah, that's awesome," whatever. And I didn't even remember it. I was just always so drunk. Like I said, guys, don't end up being like I used to be. Let's spend this holiday season sober. Let's be present. Let's remember everything that happens. Like I said, it's a totally different experience. Your friends and your family are going to appreciate it more than you will ever know. They really will, and they will notice. They're going to notice, and they're going to be so proud of you. Let's stay sober this year, guys. Like I said, when you start getting those nostalgic thoughts of last year or the year before Thanksgiving or 10 years ago when you went over to your folks' house for Thanksgiving, like I said, and everybody was drinking and having a great time and you didn't get wasted drunk. Like I said, that was 10 years ago. That was a different person and a different time and a different period of their drinking. just when you start thinking about that stuff, think about something else. Change your thoughts, find something to keep yourself busy, and just don't entertain it. Just really focus on the fact that you want to spend this year sober with your family, because like I said, they will notice, and they are going to be so proud of you this year. Let's stay sober this year, guys. I just wanted to talk about that today. Like I said, I was sitting around last night with my family while my wife was opening up presents, and we were just all sitting around talking, and I was just thinking to myself, like, things are just so different now since I've gotten sober, because this would not have been possible when I used to drink. It just wouldn't have been possible at all, and I'm so happy and so blessed that I'm sober now, and I'm able to experience these things sober. It really is like it's just like living a brand new life. There are so many things in my life that I'm doing for the first time sober, all the time. It's just such a cool experience to, get to do something that every single time that you did in the past, you used to drink, and then you get to do it sober, and you get to experience it. It's all new again. Because like I said, 99% of the things that I did when I was drinking, I don't even remember doing them. I have no memory of it. But everything that I do now that I'm sober, I remember every last bit of it, every last second of it. And those memories will stay there forever. They're never going to go anywhere. As we age, things, we don't remember things as clearly, and some stuff gets pushed back to the back. But those holidays every year, we remember those. Those are the big highlights of the year. And we remember each one of those holidays, especially if you take pictures or video and you go back and look at it years later on down the road. You look at a picture and you're going to get teleported right back to that moment. And like I said, you can remember these precious moments that we have with our friends and our family. Because the one thing about life is that we're all not going to be here forever. And, each one of those moments that we have together as family and with our friends, each one of these holiday seasons, they're special. And being able to remember them, most importantly, to be able to remember them, it's just so important. And it really, truly is life-changing once we get sober. Like I said, guys, you get those nostalgic thoughts. You start thinking back to a Thanksgiving or Christmas from a couple years ago, and you start thinking about how you guys were drinking this, this sangria that somebody made. And like I said, you guys were having a blast and all that stuff. That was you drinking years ago. You're not the same person anymore. You're not going to be able to go back to drinking just a couple glasses of wine. Once again, we're going to take it too far. We go in and have a couple glasses of sangria, and, before you know it, we're digging and searching through everything, trying to find the highest alcohol percentage beverage that we can find. You're digging through the fridge, trying to find that 12% IPA or that 16% bottle of wine, or, you're trying to find some liquor or whatever it is, because you're ready to blast off. You're ready to take it to the next level, because that's what we always do. Like I said, if 5 feels great, 100 is going to feel even better. And that's just the way that we work. Leave those nostalgic thoughts or those nostalgic memories where they are in the past. Just don't think about that part. Let's think about a new year, new holiday, new time and experiences with our family, being sober. And like I said, most importantly, how proud that everybody's going to be of you this year, that you're going to show up sober. It's an amazing feeling to have. So guys, thank you so much for watching today. I really do appreciate it. Like I said, I just wanted to talk about that today. It's just been on my mind. I really do truly think that, if you guys, stick it out and stay sober this year for the holidays, for those of you who've never experienced it before, it's going to be a totally different experience for you. And one that you will always, always remember. So let's stay sober today, guys. One more day, especially now with it, daylight savings times being over. I think in my mind that it makes it just a little bit easier. Because when the daylight's gone, there's just not a whole lot more to do. When your day's over and it's dark, it's like, well, now it's time to go inside and chill out and watch some TV, cook some dinner, and maybe read a book or something, play some video games. I don't know, spend time with the kids, but just hanging outside and drinking, and it's just, that's pretty much gone because the daylight's gone. The summertime's always been a really big trigger for me. Just those long daylight hours, doing things outside, because I always drank when I was outside doing stuff. I've always been a really big outdoors person. And this time of year, that kind of slows down. There's just not as much daylight. And, like I said, it just makes it easier for me. And I hope for those of you that are watching right now, I hope it makes it easier for you as well. Let me know in the comments. Do you find it easier when daylight savings time is over, to stay sober versus, summertime with those, really long daylight hours? Or do you find it easier with the longer daylight hours? Just let me know in the comments. I really like to know what you guys think about that. But anyway, once again, guys, you start getting those nostalgic thoughts. Like I said, those are in the past. Leave them there, and let's have a sober holiday this year. Your family are going to be so proud of you for it. So, and you'll be proud of yourself. And that's the most important thing. Because at the end of the day, we're doing this for ourselves. We first and foremost have to want it for us. And everything else comes second, but we have to want it for us first. So guys, with that said, I'm gonna hop off of here for today. Thank you so much for being here. I love you guys so much, and until tomorrow, I will see you guys then. Y'all have a wonderful rest of your day.